What's quacking, guys? It's the Duck Chris, and today we're back with another ramble. Today I'm going to discuss a suggestion that I have for an upcoming Clue expansion. In the background, I'm going to be showing a raid that I did today where I'm learning the new shadow method. Now, this isn't live comm because I have a hard time talking when some complicated brain activity is going on, but it'll be in the background so you can take a look. I'm still learning the shadow method, so there are some mistakes, but I thought it was a cool raid to show. So what are we talking about? We're talking about dyes. And dyes are something that if you don't know, they're in RS3. And basically what they are is a way to recolor your best in slot gear. So by best in slot gear, they mean any weapons or armor that was best in slot since dyes came out. When they came out, it was only, I think, used for Drygores and a couple armor sets. But then as a while, they they went from their tier 80s to their tier 90s to their 92s and 95s, and now there's a whole bunch of gear that can be dyed. In old school, what I think dyes could be is specific to weapons, because I think our armor has like only so much personality to the point that if you dyed them all, then they'd all look the same. But ultimately, I think the weapons could really look nice. And what does the dyes mean? They don't apply just a bland color like, oh, my staff is red, my staff is blue, but they apply a color scheme. So one of the dyes they have is the third age dye, and the third age dye is a black and white color scheme to match the third age armor. And this doesn't mean that all weapons are straight white or all weapons are straight black. For example, I whipped this up, a little example of the staff. So this is the shadow, and this is an example of what a black and white shadow could be. Obviously, I'm a horrible artist, but basically the idea is it applies the third age color scheme to the weapon while still obviously being the same weapon. So you can see that I'm using the shadow here. If you had the shadow, but instead of the wings being gold, the wings were kind of a gray and black, that would be kind of what you were looking at. And of course, they have other dyes as well. They have the blood dye, and here's an example of the blood staff that I whipped up as well. Again, it is red, and red is the color scheme, but you've got some other black and shading in there, so it's still obviously the same weapon. I think this would be cool because for a couple of reasons. Number one, customization. Everyone wants to customize their fit and fashionscape their stuff so that it looks, unique and personal and cool, and other people are like, wow, that guy has a sick outfit. And right now, while we do have some ornament kits in the game for your PVM gear, mostly people are using the same stuff. If you have a Fang kit, you're going to use it. If you have a Scythe kit, you're going to use it. If you have a Mutagen, you're going to use it, although there are two of those. But overall, all the PVM gear that people are looking is going to look the same. And that's kind of too bad because, there is a lot of character in the game, but if you were able to show off your fashionscape as well as playing the game at the same time, instead of just, showing off fashionscape while you're standing at the GE, then I think that would be, very cool and very unique. And it would also fit with the history of the game. Back in the old days, when the best in slot armor was rune armor, you had 4 or 5 different versions of the rune armor. You had the god versions, Sarah, Zami, and Guthix. You also had gilded for people who were particularly rich. So in that way, it's like you could have the same sort of thing where it is your best in slot armor, but if you are wearing different color versions, then people would know, oh, this guy's cool, he's got a better version. Another reason why I think this would be a good addition to the game is that it gives people something to do with their money, and it gives people a reason to do clues for money making. Now, that's something that's kind of dropped out of the game as much as possible, apart from Ranger Boots. Ranger Boots obviously being part of the best in slot PVM gear, like that's still something everyone wants. But the truth is that most clue gear is totally irrelevant to the average person. You don't see people walking around, people who are actually playing the game with like elegant skirts or something like that. And these items are like 2k, despite being quite rare, and they're from clue scrolls, so it takes time and effort to go get them. Like, they're just useless. They're not worth anything. And if you get a rare reward, like an elegant piece or like a crier hat, like, you might be excited because you're like, oh, that's an item I've never seen before. But guess what? It's not worth anything. And that applies to almost all clue items from all tiers. Even master clues, you have the demon masks, which, are pretty unique and they make you look like a demon, but they're just totally useless and not worth anything. The only cosmetic items from clues that are worth anything are, of course, the third age items, which are really rare and ultimately pointless because you can't really PVM in them, or your ornament kits for your god swords and your Zenites and stuff, and those hold some value for sure, the Zenite kits, but they definitely don't hold as much as they used to. With people doing a lot of clues now, the ornament kits, which used to be like 8-10 mil, they've dropped down to like 2 mil, 1 mil or less, and that's just going to keep going. The more people do clues, because you're always going to want to do clues for collection log and for bloodhound and for general account progression, milestones and that sort of thing. If comp cape comes out, obviously you'll need that. People are always going to be doing the clues, and the thing is, there's just no desire for these rewards to match up with the amount of people that are going to be doing clues and generating those items. But if we had dyes, it would be different. Obviously, the core idea with dyes in terms of rarity is to make them mega rare rewards. These would still be worth a lot of money because there would be a big desire where, people want to customize their weapons. And of course, since you consume the dye when you're using it on a weapon, or at least, maybe you could get it back if you take it off, but you can't use it on all your weapons with just one item. You would need multiple dyes if you wanted to kit out your whole gear, in a specific color scheme. So there's going to be a lot of demand for them. And that means that the price is going to be high, and especially if they're rare. If they're not rare, maybe that's an option, but I think with something like this that fundamentally changes how the game looks, especially with PVM gear, you probably want it to be fairly rare. So it's going to be rare, it's going to be sought after, which means it'll be expensive. And it gives clues that sense of what if that it might be missing right now. For people who do masters, you still have the sense of, if I get a third age bow or longsword or pickaxe or axe, maybe I'm in the money, or druidic, but that's just a few items, and that only really applies to masters and elite. And even then, it's like you probably will go your whole life without seeing a piece of druidic or a third age weapon or tool. They're just so rare, those specific items, that hoping to make it rich off of master clues or elite clues is pretty much a losing game. But dyes could be more accessible because there's different dyes and they can come from different tiers of clue scroll. I think it's the kind of thing that, it wouldn't have to be, it could be third age rare for sure, but it wouldn't have to be third age pickaxe rare in terms of you will never get this. And it gives normal players a sense of what if. If I'm doing a hard clue and I'm like, oh, the best item I can get from this hard clue is a third age full helm at 8 mil or something, then even the normal players can be like, well, it's not really worth it to do for money because what? Even if I get extremely lucky, that's something I could get in 10 hours of Zora, maybe. Or less, that's just a random number. But it's the thing is, you want to give people that dream. That's the reason people love chambers and TOA and TOB, is that, what if I get the extremely rare item that worth over a bill and suddenly my life is changed? You could have that in clue scrolls, and it would give new players a reason to be like, oh my gosh, so hyped to complete my first hard clue, what if I get to die? And I would add some to hard clues for this reason. I think giving people that sense of real push towards a amazing item that you could either sell for money and transform your account, or keep it and just be like, well, my item is died because I got that, because I'm sick and I'm super lucky. Or if you're an Iron Man and you have multiple dies, everyone would be like, damn, look at that guy, he's so sick. And it wouldn't just be standing at the GE, you'd see that. It'd be during their normal gameplay. Nice flame dodge there. During a normal gameplay, you'd be raiding with them and you'd be like, oh, holy shit, this guy's got an ice staff, that's sick. So what kind of dyes could there be? Well, I would keep some of the dyes from RS3. They have some really cool ones like Shadow, which is a purple black color scheme. They have blood, as I showed before, and third age, which I showed before. They also have ice, which I mentioned, which is like a frozen kind of blue color. I think that'd be really cool. I would probably ditch the Barrows dye. I think that's kind of pointless. No one really wants your item to be like green and brown and kind of ugly. I would probably add like a gilded dye. People, in old school, gilded is still something that is worth something and something that people like seeing, and it definitely fits with the old school aesthetic. So if you could make some of your weapons like have the gilded color scheme, I think that would be really sick. And that could be part of the hard clue rewards. Like you add gilded to hard, you keep shadow, and you maybe add one other one, so you have a nice package of 3. And then from elite, you do like the blood, ice, third age. And then from master, you could do something totally new, like a wilderness color scheme, or a you do something with the gods, or because that's old school, we like our god color schemes like Sarah, Zami, maybe a Guthix one. Or you could even do something like a twisted color scheme or a Masori color scheme, like to match the different raid bosses. Although we do already have the twisted bow is already in the twisted color scheme, so you kind of wouldn't need that. But that's something that could be ironed out later on. Just come up with something new and totally cool that you think would match. Maybe a dragon one where it's like all red with white spikes or something. Anyway, like that's just a kind of extraneous idea, but the color schemes could obviously be designed to match what's going on. Another thing that I think would be good, if a good reason for the dice to come in the game, is about people, kind of bitching to the mods. For lack of a better term, it's like whenever a new item comes out, I feel like we have kind of like a month-long or like 3-week-long discussion about how things look. And that's kind of dumb in my opinion, because wow, I really fucked that one up, didn't I? It's like, after a while of things being in the game, you're going to get used to them. Like if people didn't like Masori at first, obviously like they did change it. But if people didn't like how the cape works, the Masori cape, for example, like now we're pretty much just used to it. But the truth is that they do spend a lot of time during development thinking about the looks and stuff. But if it was like not just the looks of the core item that you'd have to worry about, then you could, kind of set it aside where you're like, oh, the core item looks cool, I guess, but I'll probably just dye it with the ice dye because it matches some of my other weapons. And maybe it gives you a bit more options where you're like, for this new weapon, the ice dye doesn't look good, but the blood dye looks really good. So you choose that one instead. Obviously, this would be kind of a long-term goal for money making for a lot of people. And as I said, there's not too much that people are using their money for right now if you're like an endgame player. And yeah, maybe that might sound silly if you're thinking what do you mean not enough to use your money for? Endgame gear is over 8 bill. But the truth is that yeah, endgame gear is over 8 bill, but people can make 8 bill in a year or two if you get particularly lucky, and then figure out what to do from there. Well, what do you do if you already have all the gear? Basically, you have to sell your money, your real world trade, or you just stack it in the bank with nothing else to do, or maybe you start a third age collection like Bodhi, or you just spend it all on driving up the prices of the newest items. For example, when the staff came out, it was up to 4 bill or more, but that didn't last because once the players who had been stacking up money from 4,000 TOBs had all bought the staff, then the people who are still making money to buy gear were well, obviously we can't afford 4 bill, but maybe if it goes down to 1 bill, I'll buy it. And that's exactly what it did. So those people who bought it for 4 bill, they run out of the game runs out of people who are going to pay that, and then their staff that they paid 4 bill for goes down to 1 bill. They're like, well, this is shitty because I just spent 4 bill on an item and lost 75% of the value in 1 month. This might make that less happen because people will be spending their money on dies instead of that, so they wouldn't be stacking up as much money, and it would give people something to do in the late game, and set a long-term goal for money making, apart from just your untradables and stuff. If this sounds like a good idea to you or a bad idea, feel free to leave a comment and definitely sub, because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. And otherwise, that's all I have for you today. So thanks for listening, and peace until next time.